5'6" lies supine on mold-flecked cotton, ceiling transfixed, body broken, as if struck by lightning. Dead at 19, before purpose, before remark, my avatar. In my last teen year, my man tried to kill me with a Volkswagen, rammed my spine with grill, reversed to gain momentum. I leapt from light, body split from spirit, ba left ha. Fractures don't kill, but heal with an echo wedged in the chasm. The Valley of the Kings, I imagine, is located in the foreground of a photograph wall mural from Sears, beneath the mountain at its lowest ridge. You can tear the world off by its corner and ball it up in your arms. That's all it is. I lied for a decade. The universe got hitched, had quince, divorced, pitched over, while I ruminated in bed about hot knives. I described my crypt to a doctor who mimed a gun trigger at his temple. You feel pow-pow sometime? No, the opposite. To re-enter, reanimate my shell, how the blockbuster CGI storm cloud resets the hero's backbone in line. Instead, my ex-love became a security guard, a bored protector of goods against longing. Who wouldn't rather camouflage than change? But grief has an unknown half-life, and I've been resined in a vault of magical thinking that I can spellcast superstition into art. It's kind of intense up here. It's really lit up. I opened with the first poem from my book. The poem is called The Guard. The book is kind of called Sharps. I just want to say before I read the rest of the stuff, thanks to all of you guys for being here. It's really nice to read to people who are very likely poets and at least appreciators of the form. I'm reading from my first book, and I'm reading for the first time at a festival, so it's kind of a double whammy. I guess I thought, before I went on, to give a little bit of context about the book, kind of try and look some people in the eye. So I just thought I would tell you the book, we're calling it Sharps as an English term, but the title itself is an Egyptian hieroglyph for water, obviously referring, to fluidity and blah, blah, blah. It's kind of populated by working class voices. It's troubled quite a bit by gender issues. And it's really looking at how to be reborn within this life. Giles had a lot of beautiful, everybody's work was beautiful, don't get me wrong, but just kind of touching off what he just last read about the church and being your own person, that's really resonated with me. In addition to that, I work in mental health care. I've worked at a couple hospitals in Toronto where I live. And so the next poem I'm going to read is kind of based on that experience. And it's called Outpatient Method. Geez. Who cares what it's called? I meant to say it's great to read to poets and fans of poetry, but of course, thank you to ARC and thank you to the other readers for having me here. Geez. Nerves are the worst thing in life. Okay, so the second poem I'm going to read is called Outpatient Methadone Pharmacy, Help Wanted. Phosphorescent ampule slumber, white truffle boxes, Coke Road, cynical as a Hearst installation, but free of charge. You only need to line up and be patient. 3 out of 4 weeks of dosing glide numb, but on the 4th, security doubles of patrols, corridors get edgier. Patients are flush with monthly checks, and dealers undulate in entrances. Tank top and fedora, Harvey Keitel pimps retreat to the needle. You can't recognize each face. Images slip. Ghostly ones, rustling-boned, windigoed, lost. After tincture, they swim on dry land. It's all double rainbows, and they're mute as monks. A bald man oscillates every noon in the hall between the elevator and disused gym. He sluices, how good you look in that color. How lovely you are. Father-like, not lech. You sketch in your mind the flipbook of his life. The wife, the child, the snakes and ladders. Over courtyard lunches, you cotton on to the craving of patience, a script that comes in Skittle flavors, that doesn't taste like shit. The Met pharmacy pays high, but has retention issues. It's hiring again. It's one thing to do one thing well. It's another to do only one thing ever. So Pearl read a poem earlier. It's funny, you make a set list kind of in your mind, and then it just goes out the window because you hear other poets' work and you kind of want to have a conversation with it. She read a poem earlier from Thomas Transtromer, and I thought I would read one as well to sort of, pay tribute, to, I guess, in addition to him. So I think he was 83. He died today. And yeah, I wanted to read a poem of his called Allegro. You guys might know that. So this is like a cover song, right? I'm like a Scarborough band, like doing the Magnetic Fields because it seems easy. All right. And afterwards, my stuff's gonna look like super crap, but we're here because of the greats. Okay, Allegro. After a black day, I play Haydn and feel a little warmth in my hands. The keys are ready. Kind hammers fall. The sound is spirited, green, and full of silence. The sound says that freedom exists, and someone pays no taxes to Caesar. I shove my hands in my Haydn pockets and act like a man who's calm about it all. I raise my Haydn flag. The signal says, we do not surrender, but we do want peace. The music is a house of glass standing on a slope. Rocks are flying, rocks are falling. The rocks roll straight through the house, but every piece of glass is still whole. So one thing about him is, in addition to being a phenomenal poet, he was a psychologist, and so I kind of respect him on a lot of levels. And I find that that poem is really intimate. You feel like you're in the room with him. He's one of those people you wish you could have a drink with. And I feel like when you read that poem, maybe not when I read it, but when you read it alone, it feels like you did. I'm going to read two more. Give me one sec, guys. It's Miller time. I introduced this poem as for later. That's a Swedish word for forgiveness, but I have no idea how it's pronounced. It's a little bit of a longer one. I won't know if you're on your phone. Okay? That child on the plane was worse than British weather. We rushed through the extruded carpeted square with her screams ricocheting in our dura mater. Her parents are numb. Our past is her future. We flew over plush archipelagos where it's no longer possible for inhabitants to not be counted, to not have an academic in an attic write a lamentation on the loss of your land's metaphors, to not have a clipper ship sail around your B612-sized coast and decree ownership of your guano, to not have Oliver Sacks putter in on a prop plane and chew a sea urchin under your palm. Anything can happen and will. The question is to whom? In Dublin's medievalist bar, a drunk waxes on the topic of urban planning. We here prefer the horizontal line, so sprawl is inevitable. Later, I watched a Gaelic program on TG4 about village stone walls. The raised scars are embedded with dead newborns. My architecture professor had once scolded a classmate for having asked his sister if the tower he'd made was too tall. The prof said, "What does a 16-year-old girl know about anything other than the horizontal?" Well, they know how babies end up under walls. From Dublin, I boarded a vacant sloth train up a swarthy coast. A broken cliff with a waterfall served as a ball-cap brim to squat mobile homes. The Atlantic lay fallow, spinning like a snake pit at the plexiglass picture windows. Bus tours raced me from botanic to landmarks, Couples streamed out louvered doors like fire ants. The pairs hugged, marveled at boulders, at waves, at peat, at each other. What a joy to feel small together, to share diminishment. My husband and I are an ocean apart, less than a year after the wedding. The lune de miel has crystallized, it's gone hard, and the smell is off, the canal's compressing. Quick, go to Shoppers, honey, get the drops. Will I pale against the constellation of your ideals? You refuse to believe we are near anything, darling. Homeostasis isn't supposed to disrupt progress, but it does and will until we learn what love is, which is simply forgiveness in perpetuity. Kids are chronic with a battery of illnesses, and it makes them resilient, but the smallest drift kills us, the way a snake can't inhabit a rope. I go to the bow, so to speak, while you sit in the stern. That's Donnie Brasco, you know. Anyway, love's kind of like the mob, you know. The lushness leads my mind into the burn. A child is a spire, and a spire is a needle, threaded with a halo or a shadow. I can sew a tyrant a sailor suit, but do I want to be his tailor? A woman I knew sat on her shears, and they slid into her dorsal column. The prom dress was delivered early, and she limps through them all, miming how grace is terror-fraught. In Antrim, the sun shafted down all from the clouds, strobing, like one of those evangelical graphic novels strategically placed on public transit. Below my hexagonal rock, the Atlantic gurgled into the broken casket of a barnacle. When Bart wrote, "The earth is a mother who never dies," he swiped his best line from the Maori, and that's the justness of a lie. But where do these words leave me, if I'm not a mother, and I've never tried? Barren on a mossy ledge, trying to believe what I left by what else writing it down. Wiping my nose on my sleeve while my eggs rot in their nest. An eagle is a vulture wearing a stolen crown. He's never torn, but I haven't tried my best. I'm told the first people hugged the coast and their first prayers weren't for rain, but for the sun to remain unfractured, whole, and not a symbol of anything but itself. So I'm just going to read one more poem, and thank you very much for indulging me. When crowds are quiet, you don't know if they're dying or... I haven't seen anybody fall out of the chair. So, the last poem I'm going to read is called The Crook and Flail. I read the first poem of the book, and this is the last poem of the book, and I mentioned a couple things that were part of the book. One thing that couldn't help be a part of the book was my own grandfather dying. He was 83, I think same age as Thomas Tranströmer, and unlike a Nobel Prize winner, nobody knew him. But I think Pearl was talking earlier about Nick, and I love Nick Laird, his love poems. But it's funny about a love poem. I can't write one about my husband, but not yet anyway. But I love my grandfather, and he died this time last year. So I thought I would read this tonight, kind of calling on his spirit a little bit. And again, thanks to everybody. This poem is called The Crook and Flail, which that again is I didn't talk a little bit about the hieroglyph and Egyptian imagery, but that's, you guys all know the casket and what the pharaoh was holding on the coffin, on the cover of the coffin. So, The Crook and Flail. If I don't watch myself, I speed up and speed up. Okay? Okay. A fervent mother insisted her children sleep crosswise, hands crosswise, to each shoulder, like the emblem of swords on a crest. This was to prevent funny business in pajama pants. Poppy snored like this for his 85 years, as if centuries before in another land, a mummy sarcophagus, an etched pharaoh, gripping crook and flail, emulating Osiris, transcending his no-good brother Seth. He was one of 13. One had a quadruple bypass, his lungs scrubbed of HVAC work, a human grease trap. Another lived on crutches in the office trailer of his used car lot, perpendicular to the Lone Ranger. Another did a U-turn on the Trans-Canada and stopped in front of a freighter. That's a flavor. In the year before he died, he lamented on repeat. You heard about my mom, sobbing, but she'd been dead for decades. As disease progressed, he enacted dreams. Reason failed, motor revved, and no one could hand sign or sight read. Then he couldn't swallow or speak. He lay fetal in a hospital bed as if he'd sustained a blow to the gut, his comb-over sketching an apraxic spirograph on boiled sheets. It snowed. It sunned. You spoon-fed him ice, and he clutched your hand so tight you dropped the full cup in bed to pry open his vice grip. Each knuckle mound plum-hued, as if you'd brawled, as if you'd been the one who buckled him. The marks faded, and you ached for those traces. They were proof. Appearing to snooze in his Sunday suit, the lacquered trap was lowered over his chest, and his reliquary swayed over a salivating hole. The caterpillar dugger paused until we were blown inside to balance rattling porcelain cups and saucers under a mirrored coffee urn. Spring was labile, gull screeching, a puritanical woman behaving like the Old Testament. But then, that was his origin and home. Grasping, you've been told, is the first and last sign of life. You gotta let it go. Thanks.